Republicans launch an outreach effort to Hispanic Coloradans.
We have burritos.
But as polling shows strong support among Colorado's Latinos for abortion rights, Republican candidates are scrubbing their anti-abortion positions from their websites. Denver's police chief suddenly resigns after an expensive year of police brutality lawsuits. A Colorado congressman furiously buckpedals on whether taking classified documents home is a big deal. Building community to help Coloradans recover from addiction. And turning the trip of a lifetime into a lifelong career in the outdoors for some kids who might have wondered if they belong there. All that is next. Republican candidates across America have been caught lately scrubbing their anti-abortion positions off their campaign websites, as a majority of voters oppose the Supreme Court decision to overturn abortion rights. That includes Republican Barbara Kirkmeyer, who is running in Colorado's newest and most closely contested congressional district in Adams and Weld County. Kirkmeyer is a staunch opponent of abortion, but you would not know it from her website anymore. Steve Steger caught up with Kirkmeyer today in Thornton.
My commitment to the sanctity of family could not be stronger than it is today.
That's about as close as Republican State Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer got to talking about abortion during her public comments as the RNC opened a Hispanic community center in Thornton on Wednesday. A Politico story this week pointed out that a number of Republicans nationally have scrubbed mentions of their opposition to abortion from their websites, including Kirkmeyer. We confirmed that an archived version of Kirkmeyer's website mentioned a priority of defending the sanctity of life, and that page has been deleted.
I want to ask you about your website and your stance on abortion. Has something changed?
No.
Where do you stand on abortion?
I'm pro-life.
Pro-life?
And I always have been.
And it wasn't just Kirkmeyer. Republican candidate for governor Heidi Ganahl's website mentioned her pro-life position months ago, but it was absent from her website today until we asked her campaign about it, and then it appeared. I asked the chair for the Colorado Republican Party about that today.
What's your take on more and more Republican candidates kind of scrubbing that from their website before November?
Our Republican candidates are very clear. We're the pro-life party, and Hispanic voters share that value with us.
A poll from Unidos Mi Familia Vota found 74% of Colorado Latino voters believe abortion should remain legal, despite their own personal beliefs on the issue. Latino voters make up 38% of the electorate Kirkmeyer is vying for.
I think if you go back and look at everyone's websites, not just mine, but even my opponent and other folks who are campaigning, there's a campaign that happens in the primary, and then things shift, and everybody goes back and revises their web pages, and they focus in on the issues that they're going to focus in on.
Do you think abortion will be a concern for general voters?
I think to some degree it will be. I've probably hit at least 10,000 doors myself and talking to folks. And I can probably count on one hand the number of people who have asked me about abortion.
The Colorado Republican Party today set us examples of changes in the website for Kirkmeyer's opponent, Democrat Yadira Caraveo. But they were policies on a campaign website for her run for state representative a few years ago, which has since been deleted. Ganahl's team told me that the last-minute change to her website is something that's been in the works for a while, and they say that Heidi's stance on abortion has never changed. In fact, the campaign spokesman said, I was just going through the course of updating that page today, and so you caught me as I was updating that page today.
Wait, she put it back up today when you asked about it?
Yeah, I asked about it, and then she said, no, it's there, look now, and by the way, I was just working on it today.
How about that?
Yeah.
What are the odds?
What a coincidence.
What are the odds? So when we talk about their positions on abortion, unlike some candidates in other states, it does not appear that their positions have changed. And in fact, Ganahl, who's running for governor, has a different position than Kirkmeyer. Ganahl believes in exceptions for rape and incest. Kirkmeyer, no exceptions for rape and incest.
No, she confirmed that again to us today.
Okay. Steve, thank you. Democratic State Representative Matt Gray has pleaded guilty to driving while ability impaired. According to court documents, he agreed to that plea deal today. Documents say that a judge sentenced him to probation and community service. He was arrested back in April. He was trying to pick his kids up from school at the time when staff realized that he was intoxicated. The staff would not allow him to leave with the children. Gray is not running for re-election. Our next question tonight is about RTD's new police chief, the highest paid chief in the state. Bill wanted to know about the previous chief's salary, how much of an increase the new chief is getting to oversee those 21 sworn officers. Bill, we have been asking that question for days. RTD has been awfully squirrely about all of this. An open records request that we got back this afternoon shows that the new RTD police chief is paid a lot more than the last one. RTD's new chief, Joel Fitzgerald, is making $250,000 a year, highest paid police chief in Colorado, despite the relatively small number of sworn officers, 21. His predecessor, Robert Grotto, made far less, $164,000 a year. And the interim chief, Steve Martingano, made less as well, $213,000. RTD is defending Fitzgerald's salary, saying that it is comparable to what transit police chiefs make in other cities. But they have declined to give us examples, told us to go find them ourselves, pointed us to the American Public Transportation Association, which told us today they don't have those salary numbers. So, in lieu of transparency on this from RTD, we will keep looking on our end, or RTD could just come out and tell the public. Denver Police Chief Paul Payson is retiring suddenly. Has been a difficult 6 months for the chief and DPD. Denver was hit with a $14 million police misconduct judgment, and police recently opened fire on a crowded street in Lodo, shooting 6 bystanders. Payson has spent 28 years with DPD, last 4 years as chief. He leaves at a time when Denver is seeing a spike in violent crime, as are many large cities right now. Payson oversaw the DPD response to the George Floyd police protests in 2020. As a result of what happened in the streets, a jury awarded 12 injured protesters $14 million. They found the DPD did not properly train its officers and did not respond appropriately to the protests. Payson is turning over command of DPD really quickly, like next Tuesday. The mayor has picked Division Chief of Patrol Ron Thomas to be the next chief. He takes the reins Tuesday. City Council would need to confirm him for the permanent job. Thomas is a familiar face. He's been with DPD since 1989. Just a reminder, the mayor leaves office next summer. New mayor can pick whoever they want to be the police chief. Former CU professor John Eastman, the man who drew up the plan for President Trump to overthrow American democracy, testified in front of a special grand jury in Georgia today. Sounds like Eastman didn't say a whole lot. His legal team says they advised him to remain silent when appropriate and invoke his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. His lawyers didn't share what the grand jury asked him. Eastman, who is a former visiting CU scholar, wrote the blueprint on how to throw out the election results and keep Trump in power. Vice President Mike Pence refused to follow Eastman's plan. The grand jury is looking into the president and his team's efforts to overturn the election results in Georgia. A former prosecutor who represents Colorado in Congress says it's really no sweat that President Trump had classified documents at his house. The FBI seized those documents after the Trump team refused to turn them over. Republican Ken Buck, who represents Northern Colorado, said it isn't a concern. It's quite the buck pedal from the congressman's deep concern about Hillary Clinton's private email server back in 2015. Here's Buck on Fox, Now and Then.
I understand that former presidents, former Secretary of States may very well have classified information. He may be writing a memoir. He may be writing an autobiography.
You can be sure that foreign governments, if they can hack into a Sony computer, foreign governments can hack into a server in the basement of a home in Chappaquiddick, New York.
The fact that he had documents in and of itself isn't a concern.
The problem that I hear here in Colorado is what was she hiding?
Clinton, of course, cooperated with the Justice Department investigation and was ultimately cleared. Court filings from the DOJ yesterday say that the Trump team likely concealed and removed documents to obstruct, their words, the investigation. For decades, a nonprofit in Colorado has been taking kids from underserved communities on adventures in the high country because a lot of young Coloradans see the mountains every day, but rarely go there. Now that nonprofit is trying to turn the experience of a lifetime into a lifetime career path. That's why this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign is supporting Big City Mountaineers. So many Coloradans, we escaped into nature during the pandemic and we've held on to those connections. But for some families, the cost and schedules or maybe just unfamiliarity with the high country kept their kids from having the same experiences. Big City Mountaineers takes youth organizations and school groups from underserved communities along the Front Range. It takes them on guided wilderness experiences, building both a love of nature and a sense of confidence that the outdoors are for everyone. Well, now they're creating a Leaders in Training program so that young people who are inspired by their time in the high country can get connected with career fields and with companies that want to hire from a more diverse cross-section of our community. Because again, our outdoors are for all of us. And getting young people from underrepresented communities into the Park and Forest Service and into these outdoor recreation companies, that should open doors for even more people in our community. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. As always, I will match the first 50 people who come in with $5 to get us rolling. This is not just about those life-changing trips for young people who otherwise might just look at the mountains. It's about helping them find a career path that every kid in Colorado should be able to imagine. This state is coming off our worst year for drug overdoses. A new program is saving lives by creating community. And it's history, still.
There's a sugar beet boom in the early 1900s, exactly. It really led to the rise of Windsor.
They're raising a glass to that, a small glass, because what they made is strong stuff. Next. More Coloradans died of drug overdoses last year than at any other time. New numbers from the State Department of Health show we lost 1,881 Coloradans to overdoses last year. It's more than double the number in 2016 when the state reported 912 overdose deaths. The two deadliest drugs, bet you could guess, was fentanyl and meth. Fentanyl killed 912 people. Meth overdoses killed 749 Coloradans. The opposite of addiction is community. That's what the recovery community tells us. But they say that fact is not always recognized, and it's a missed opportunity to help people. Anusha Roy takes us inside the ER at Swedish. The look at how that's changing.
When Laura Allam is called by social workers in the ER, she walks into the room but does not see a patient.
I see me.
Allam is a recovery support specialist in recovery herself.
I was struggling with alcohol for over 20 years. Started in high school. It made me feel different. It made me feel good.
It wasn't a straightforward path, but one that led her to peer coaching.
Go into the room, I find a chair, I sit down, and I don't talk at them or over them. We're face to face. And I introduce Advocates for Recovery.
That stigma really doesn't have any place in their treatment.
ER doctor Don Stater, who helped launch the program, said it's been missing within medical treatment since long-term recovery requires a lot of overhauling long after a patient is released.
They don't have to go back and hang out with the same individuals who may be using drugs around them and put their recovery at risk. Like hiking, like getting together for barbecues, like watching football, all the stuff that we love, but without substances. I think the past several years that we've actually looked toward that recovery community and identified them as essential in recovery.
Piecing it together isn't necessarily easy.
It's difficult to send people to a community that is willing to accept them with open arms, that is willing to understand and approach that person with grace.
But now that the connection has been made at Swedish and that community is waiting,
there's hope, there's joy.
Dr. Stater knows it's working based off of who is missing in the ER.
Multiple examples of patients who were here very, very frequently that now are in sustained recovery, that are engaged with Advocates for Recovery, Laura's group, and are living amazing lives in recovery.
So far, around 500 people have been reached over the last 2+ years and followed up with multiple times, but there really isn't good data of exactly how many people have stayed in recovery because that's really hard data to track. There are some other hospitals with similar programs, but Dr. Stater would like to see things expand from there. But Kyle, you have to include cost that has to be considered in all of this and how it's being worked into budgets to hire peer specialists. I mean, we've talked on this show about how much a hospital's budget can vary depending on where they are and what kind of funding they're getting.
Yep. We should just say here, full disclosure, last November, 9 News viewers, through Word of Thanks, raised money specifically with the idea of supporting that peer recovery program at Swedish and expanding it to other hospitals. You would hope, Anusha, that as issues of addiction morph and change in our community, that there would be significant changes in terms of recovery and treatment and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say that the entire time I've actually been talking about this topic on this show, I've actually been talking to Dr. Stater about it as well. And if you think about the individual times we've talked about new naloxone programs where you're getting it, if you step back and look at big picture, that was a big change in this state. There's been a lot of work too about getting more treatment, but there's a long way to go. But even with all of the stories that I have done about this, we haven't really talked about the recovery community as much. And that is where a lot of experts are hoping to shore up so that that is going to be that third pillar that really helps people.
Yep. Hope, the operative word. Anusha, thank you.
So long, August. You're a hot one for sure. In fact, we are making it into the number 4 spot for the hottest August on record here in Denver at 76.1 degrees. That averages the daytime high, the overnight low. It has just been sizzling. 21 out of the past 31 days above average here in Denver. Today, no exception at 94 out of DIA. Same in Greeley with mid-90s off to the eastern plains, despite the front, despite the thunderstorms that have cropped up. And then out to the western slope, another hot afternoon. Thunderstorms continue to track from the northwest off to the south and to the east tonight. Nothing severe at this moment, but a lot of lightning and some pretty heavy downpours coming through. By about 11, everything moves out. Clearing skies move in. And tomorrow, a much clearer and sunnier and drier afternoon for us. Temperatures back to the mid-90s. We go 70s, 80s up in the mountains, and then the 90s, they're here to stay through the Labor Day weekend.
Windsor might not be Windsor if not for sugar beets. Now a distiller wants Coloradans to taste that history.
We really wanted to utilize something local.
We have the beets next. Sugar beets helped build the town of Windsor. Now a distiller in northern Colorado is going back to their roots.
No, they weren't short. Dude, this job is the best job in the whole wide world. I get to go out there and enjoy a product that I'm proud of with people I love. My name's Zach Weekland, head brewer, head distiller at High Hops Brewery and the Heart Distillery in Windsor, Colorado, my hometown. Keeping the agricultural tradition going, I suppose. Yeah, you could say it. So Windsor started as kind of really agricultural based. Yeah, there's a sugar beet boom in the early 1900s, exactly. It really led to the rise of Windsor. Windsor started as kind of a halfway trading house between Greeley and Fort Collins. And then the sugar beet industry came in, built a sugar beet factory, and the rest is history. Here we got our sugar beet rum. It is made with 100% sugar beets grown at the Schlegel farm about 20 miles from here. And sugar beets, well, my dad was a dentist here in town and one of his patients grew sugar beets. They got together and said, why don't we try a beet rum? There was a lot of difficulties in coming up with how to actually extract the sugar from the sugar beets themselves. What we ended up doing was getting a wood chipper, throwing the big sugar beets, which are 2 to 5 pound big old balls, throwing them into this wood chipper, and that chipper throwing them into our mash tun. It's kind of a full circle, right? The farmer goes to my dad for dentist, then we buy sugar beets from him, and then we make rum for everybody to enjoy. So being able to share where I'm from means the world to me.
We are back with your feedback about BS and how we're turning adventures into careers for some kids who face challenges in our community. Next. I love when a longtime nonprofit in Colorado is willing to pivot to make their impact even larger. For decades, Big City Mountaineers has taken kids from underserved communities on high country adventures that they otherwise might miss out on. Now the nonprofit's creating leadership programs so that the young people who go on the trips can afterward get connected with career opportunities in outdoor recreation, the Park Service, the Forest Service. This is about taking proven impact and going even bigger with our help. So scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491. You can join me in donating to Big City Mountaineers. Our outdoors should be a place where every Coloradan, especially young people, feel at home. And this seems like a great way to make that happen in the short term and in the long run. Kaya says, I wish every state had a newscaster as quick to call out BS. I'm guessing most states do, but I would be willing to work weekends in Wyoming if that would be helpful. We'll see you next time.